typo. I'll start by acknowledging that we're on the traditional territory of the Coast Salish people, particularly with Saanich people, Saanich speaking people, so I greet you in Saanich Haishka Siam. Thank you for being here and all honor to you. I've been, well, I have to apologize about the timing. It's my fault in two ways. First of all, the fact that our meeting is on Father's Day, so happy Father's Day to fathers in the room. What a fun way to spend it. It's entirely my fault. This meeting was originally planned by Thomas and the SGI EDA team for the 16th, Saturday. And I called some months ago and said, oh boy, if we have our EDA on Saturday, I will miss the Gulf Island Secondary School graduation. And I missed it last year because I had to speak to the Green Party of Germany and I was in Berlin and I don't want to miss it 2 years in a row. And please, can you move it? And Thomas said that would mean making it on Father's Day. So I felt terrible, but I said, well, I guess then we have to put it on Father's Day. And then what happened was putting it today is great. And when we planned it, Air Canada's schedule for me to get back to Ottawa tonight, I had to be at the airport for 3. But then Air Canada changed their schedule, and I have to be at the airport at 2. I don't get back to Ottawa any sooner. I still get it at 1:30 in the morning, but I have an earlier departure from here. So those are the mea culpas. All my fault that I've messed up the agenda, have to go first, have to rush out of here, and that it's Father's Day. But I really want to start, I'm glad we showed the video first, because a lot of really cool stuff happens in the Green Party of Canada that starts out in this riding association. Well, it's Electoral District Association. Elections Canada changed the term. So those of you who, like me, still think of it as a riding, it's an Electoral District Association. Elections Canada changed the name. But a lot of the things that happen across Canada within the Green Party have a little seed that starts here. So I suppose you'd have to say the first little seed, which was kind of big, was winning the election here in 2011. That really changed the fortunes of the Green Party across the country. And I don't think that anyone would doubt that we would not have had the success we've had across Canada at the provincial level if Greens had been continually shut out every single time, everywhere we ran. We know that our current voting system, first past the post, makes a very large hurdle for Greens to be elected. My colleague, Carolyn Lucas, who is the leader of the Green Party of UK and Wales, she was the first person in any country with first past the post to get elected. And she won her riding of Brighton Pavilion. A year later, we won in Saanich-Gulf Islands. And that changed everything. Then it was not that long, maybe it was 2 years later, right, that Andrew Weaver won a seat in Victoria, in Oak Bay, Gordon Head. And then David Coon won a seat in New Brunswick as leader of the New Brunswick Greens. David Coon's seat followed by Peter Bevan Baker, leader of the Green Party of Prince Edward Island. And since then, a second Green's been elected in Prince Edward Island in a by-election, Hannah Bell. And currently, the Greens in Prince Edward Island are polling so strongly that they may form government. Oh. Peter Bevan Baker is unquestionably top choice as leader, but the party as a whole is basically neck and neck with the PEI Liberals, and the Progressive Conservatives of Prince Edward Island poll third, and then the NDP is a distant one. By the way, New Brunswick and PEI are interesting electoral political landscapes for us, because the third party in both of those legislatures is the Green Party, because the New Democrats don't hold any seats at all. So New Brunswick and PEI were real big successes. And then back to BC to last year and electing our MLA here for North Saanich and the Islands, Adam Olson, and Sonia Furstenau for Cowichan Lake in her area. Well, it's all been very, very exciting. And then we come to what happened June 7th. And that's a big breakthrough, because people in central Canada can think, I guess those people who live along oceans are kind of nuts. But we in the center in Ontario, well, we're the sensible people. So having Mike Schreiner finally get the breakthrough that we needed in Ontario is huge. And I'm sure you all noticed that Mike Schreiner, leader of the Green Party of Ontario, the only good news coming out of the Ontario election is that Mike Schreiner is going to Queen's Park. And he is just as spectacular as Andrew Weaver, Peter Bevan Baker, David Kuhn, I mean, the people who get elected, Adam Olson, people who get elected for the Green Party, I think it's because the hurdles against us are so large. I mean, I don't speak ill of any of my colleagues in Parliament, but some of them really, if you ran into them on the street and struck up a conversation, you wouldn't be impressed. They won because of their party banner. And they're nice people, but you know, I sometimes have to fill them in on history. So, in any case, what I started to say is really good things start from Saanich-Gulf Islands. And one of those really cool things that's happened lately is the innovation of the executive. If you're going to be electing the executive, it really matters. This executive, under Michael's leadership, and before that, Dave Charles, always doing cool and innovative things. And one of them was the creation of something that allows EDA volunteers to talk to each other across the country. It's called EDA 2.0, and I think it's really quite cool. It allows people to get together with technology on what's called Zoom. But I thought of it as Skype. It's kind of group Skype. Anyway, it works. I don't want to know how it works. And this video happened because I was talking to the new, well, he's not that new, he was my director of communications of the Green Party in 2006, 2007. He was the best director of communications we ever had, and for personal reasons he had to leave, and he came back, and he's wonderful. His name's John Chenery. So John had this idea that this national interest chanting coming from the Liberals, these hollow words, because honestly there isn't any study that shows Kinder Morgan is in our national interest. The National Energy Board, when they held their hearings, and this is just something I like to reiterate, many of you know this, but the National Energy Board refused to hear the evidence of the largest union in northern Alberta, Unifor. Unifor wanted to intervene specifically to stop the expansion because they saw it as a threat to jobs, because just like exporting raw logs is a threat to our sawmills, exporting raw bitumen is a threat to refinery jobs, plus the opportunity cost of not creating refinery jobs for the bitumen that's being produced. In any case, the National Energy Board saw Unifor's evidence, accepted Unifor as an intervener, but then when they saw the evidence was about jobs, they said, we refuse to hear this evidence. We will not admit it into the record of the National Energy Board because jobs in the economy are outside our mandate. So how the heck could anyone find it credible that when they determined Kinder Morgan was in the public interest, in what context? You know, it's repeated, and the morning, May 29th, we were talking about the morning that Bill Morneau and Jim Carr announced that the people of Canada, by the way, congratulations, we're in a joint venture, we own a pipeline, we're all very proud. The morning they announced that, Bill Morneau actually said that Kinder Morgan had gone through the most rigorous environmental assessment in the history of the country, which only goes to show that he knows absolutely nothing about the history of environmental assessment in Canada, because the Kinder Morgan review under the NEB was, not just my opinion, but empirically the worst review of any project at the federal level in the history of Canada. You might find a more slipshod review at a provincial level somewhere that I don't know about, but I went to my first environmental assessment hearing in 1975. I actually attended the very first environmental assessment in Canada. It was a panel review of the Wreck Cove hydroelectric project on Cape Breton Island. And I didn't know when I walked in the room that I was attending the first. But I've done dozens of them. And I've tracked the ones that get knocked down by the court. This is the Kinder Morgan review by the National Energy Board was absolutely the worst, because Harper broke all the laws to say you have to have a short hearing, and the National Energy Board has to run the environmental assessment hearing even though it had never done that before. Well, it had done it once. The Enbridge Northern Gateway pipeline fell under those rules, but they didn't have the time limits. So the interveners in the Enbridge matter were allowed to cross-examine witnesses, not in the case of Kinder Morgan. No cross-examination, no fairness, and this kind of running roughshod over saying we don't want to hear from Unifor. And then, anyway, the Kinder Morgan process was the worst, and the fact that government just keeps ignoring the reality that there is no evidence that this is in the national interest is more than frustrating. So John Chenery got the idea, because it was annoying him to hear these repetitive talking points from Catherine McKenna and Jim Carr and Bill Morneau and Justin Trudeau. So he said, look, it's just annoying. Why don't we try to do one of those video things, like I've seen where Trump keeps repeating China. You know, these things kind of catch on when you make it look so silly. And we don't have a lot of in-house video people. Well, we don't have any in-house video people in the National Office in Ottawa. So John got a videographer to come out. That was my porch on 2nd Street in Sydney, looking out. It's a wonderful building, rental units. It's fantastic, and that's my view. That's why I'm still standing up. I so love my view. I get home, I get to see my view. It's enough to keep going for another week. So John said, how are we going to do, I want to do this video. He sent this nice filmmaker out and said, Elizabeth, this is roughly what I want you to say, but I didn't have a script or anything. I ranted a bit. And then John said, getting it produced, we just have a little bit of trouble finding the right person. And I said, why don't you ask Thomas? Maybe there's somebody in the EDA 2.0 group who's got some talents. Well, step up to the plate, a guy from Vancouver. It was Joe Poville, right? No?
It was the same guy that did the video. He was part of the video team.
Someone else was part of, okay, so Thomas got it all organized, and that's what we got. So the combination of really good ideas and really keen volunteers and really good staff in Ottawa, which is what we have right now, between the two sets of people, we're getting really exciting things happening. So I'm very, very grateful, that's what I wanted to say mostly, to the executive of my electoral district association here in Saanich-Gulf Islands. We're the only electoral district association of any political party that stays active between elections. Thomas, who's our synergist, is the only person, he's kind of a staff position, but kind of modestly remunerated, we could say. But the Conservatives, the Liberals, the New Democrats, none of them have any EDAs that are autonomous to hire someone to keep busy, to do more between elections. So this Electoral District Association of Saanich-Gulf Islands Greens is not just unique among Green Party EDAs, it's the only EDA of any party anywhere in Canada that does as much and is so committed to finding ways to keep our volunteers engaged between elections, not just about doing Green Party stuff, but doing community things and getting involved in helping where people need help and getting involved in whatever it takes to, for instance, move on climate action, stop the Kinder Morgan pipeline, which is just so outrageous. And one of the things I wanted to share with you, and then I'm going to stop and take as much time as I'm allowed before Leah pulls the plug. Leah, by the way, Leah Hayward is my assistant, so you might know Leah if you've ever emailing. She's, Leah's great, and yeah. So you can contact Leah to try to sit down with me. And I would love it if you fake that you need a meeting. I'd love it if you said, this is an urgent matter, it's a matter of life and death, I need to see Elizabeth for 2 hours, and then let me just go to sleep somewhere. It's a little devious. Now it's out there, so.
That's the trick.
It has to be scheduled or it isn't going to happen. Anyway, Leah's going to get me to the airport on time, as always. One of the things that I really wanted to share today, because this is already June 17th, September 28th to 30th is a really important opportunity for us as a party to be prepared for the federal election in 2019. And it's that the national convention, which happens every 2 years, is in Vancouver. And it's going to be at the Westin Bayshore Hotel in Vancouver. For confirmed speakers, some of the people I've already mentioned so far this afternoon, Carolyn Lucas is coming from the UK, and we'll talk about what it's like to be a Green in the UK and why she's hoping British Columbia will vote in the referendum to get rid of first past the post. And she's an exciting and inspiring speaker if you don't know her, and I'm amazed that I was able to talk her into coming all the way to BC for our convention. It's a long haul from, and she's like me, very phobic about her carbon miles, but I managed to convince her. I'll level with you. Her son is studying in California at the moment, so that does help there. Because otherwise, the carbon miles alone, you really don't want to come. But so the Carolyn Lucas is coming. Peter Bevan Baker from Prince Edward Island. David Kuhn from New Brunswick. And David will just have finished up the New Brunswick elections, so please God, he comes with more MLAs elected. Mike Schreiner will be coming from Ontario. And from our BC caucus, both Adam Olson and Sonia Firstno are committed. So all of us as elected Greens together, this will be the biggest collection of elected Greens in Canada ever altogether. Plus, this is a huge honor, Grand Chief Stuart Phillip has agreed to speak to our convention, who is of course, the chief, the senior chief of the BC Council of Indian Chiefs. And at this point, I wish I could say 100%. We're at about 90% on Neil Young coming. Yeah, and his girlfriend, Daryl Hannah. You know? And so we're hoping to do, and of course, Claire Martin, Joanne Roberts. We're planning Joanne Roberts and Claire Martin are going to do a workshop or a panel on how do you communicate to people about climate change, how do you talk about it. So I'm sure I'm forgetting some other confirmed speakers at this moment, but Paul Manley is going to premiere a new film, a segment of a film. We're going to see 40 minutes of a new film that Paul has been working on. And Paul was our candidate, of course, in Nanaimo Smith. He's been working for years on a film to expose what investor-state agreements are really all about. And he went out to Nova Scotia and interviewed the people who fought so hard to stop an open-pit quarry along the shores of the Bay of Fundy with a direct threat to the survival of the right whale. And I saw an early cut of it. It's fantastic. And that's the case known as BillCon, where we won both, believe it or not, progressive conservative environment minister from Nova Scotia and a conservative minister of environment federally, John Baird, both turned down the project on the strength of the environmental assessment panel advice that this project was so bad its damage could not be mitigated. And then BillCon, being a U.S. corporation, went for a Chapter 11 secret hearing behind closed doors and ruled that the environmental assessment panel had been unfair to BillCon. And they're now seeking $570 million in damages against Canada. So that's one feature. So we're trying to look at that in themes. But in terms of activities, why would you want to come? I'm hoping some of you might want to even step up and help us run workshops. We're going to be looking, those of you with a lot of campaign experience, we want this convention to be more about training up our team than arguing about policy resolutions. So thanks to a new process, the CMP, Thomas, I always forget, it's not CMP, is it?
The CMD did the first work, but now it's the
CMD. So what this is, basically, is the biggest effort by volunteers ever in Green Party history to go back and look at the way we look at policies at convention and try to get it to where we have sensible resolutions that have gone through a process, that are limited in number, and actually advance the party. So, and there'll be some constitutional motions, some policy motions, but they won't occupy all our time at convention. The goal is that we get together and actually have sessions on what's the best way to canvass, how do you engage volunteers, and for the people who are coming who are going to be candidates, and we have a lot of people interested in being candidates, really great candidates are stepping up across the country. What kind of training do they need? What kind of support system? So it's going to be more of a workshopping how to we all get engaged. So I'm looking forward to it. There'll be some music and some fun and all that stuff too. But I just wanted to put it on your radar because I'd be deeply grateful personally if as many people from here could go as possible, because my other goal is to get media covering it and noticing, hey, Green Party had a lot more people than their normal convention. And hey, they're looking like they're really geared up for 2019 and winning a lot more seats. So that's interesting, and they're not sugarcoating the truth. So I thought I'd leave you with my idea for what I hope our approach will be to the 2019 election, which I hope will be, and Dave Charles is on the convention committee with me, so none of these things that I'm talking about are 100% approved, except the confirmed speakers. But the theme I'd like for the convention, and to try it as a trial balloon for the election, is really that it's time to tell Canadians the truth about a number of things. And maybe the slogan is just time for the truth. But, and Don Mills was saying to me earlier, we really ought to have bumper stickers that just say honesty, truth, integrity. Like that?
Truth, honesty, integrity.
Okay, truth, honesty, integrity. And that should be a Green Party bumper sticker. So what I want to say in the next election is time for the truth. Because we have any discussion of climate is based on the false notion that meeting our current target is enough to meet the Paris Agreement, which it isn't, because the current Canadian target is the one left over from Harper, and is far too weak to play our fair share in avoiding 1.5, going above 1.5 degrees Celsius and avoiding 2 degrees. So it's really time to tell people the truth about the nature of the climate challenge. So time for the truth on climate, time for the truth on democracy, why we have to get rid of first past the post, why we really need an educated, engaged, effective citizenry that holds politicians to account, why we really need transparency, and thirdly, time to tell the truth about global corporate rule. Because whenever did it become the case that governments see their job as improving corporate profits more than ensuring that people who elected them have quality of life, have access to affordable health care, pharmacare, the things that a government should be doing, are not worrying about whether Houston, Texas-based Kinder Morgan, run by the people who ran Enron, who I think are significantly deficient in moral code, why are they our priority instead of putting that money into making sure there are no more drinking water advisories at First Nations communities, or putting that money to make sure that anyone who wants to get a solar panel on their roof, or a community that wants to have its own wind turbine to create new revenue into the municipal coffers, those things would pay huge benefits. I didn't know that Bill Morneau had a spare piggy bank with $15 billion in it for the day he decided to buy a pipeline. But this is out of the territory of normal policy making. This is into crazy time. So we really need to be the party that tells people the truth about everything, and does it in a way that doesn't discourage people or defeat people or disillusion people, but says, okay, this is the reality, and these are the things we're going to do about it. And that's how I hope to go into the 2019 election. I'm really grateful for all of you being here today on a beautiful day, on Father's Day. Thank you so much. Okay, the news is it's 1:27, and Leah will certainly let me stay another 15 minutes. Yeah. So, does anyone have any questions for me before we go on to other topics? Anything at all? Well, there we go. Okay, well,
Just a comment.
Oh, Sheila.
Interesting to hear you describe your apartment, because I was online when a troll said, she's a multi-millionaire living on the waterfront.
Yeah, no, the trolls have it, I don't know if you heard Sheila's comment. Yeah, I have seen that on Twitter and Facebook, that I'm a terrible hypocrite because I own a huge home with a monstrous carbon footprint. And I think that my view is $1 million view. And I do look out over assets worth many millions because I'm right above the marina and those boats aren't cheap. But I happen to not be, I don't own anything. Because when I left Nova Scotia and moved to BC, if any of you, I think some of you have moved from Nova Scotia to BC, you know exactly, yeah. So in any case, I love renting. It's very, very sensible and efficient, but I don't own anything. I'm not a multimillionaire, although I am paid very well by the people of Canada. And I appreciate the difference between my work at Sierra Club financially, which was every month I'd get to the end of the month and not be quite sure I was going to be able to afford groceries for my daughter and like that. But the other thing was I was executive director of Sierra Club, so I had to do the fundraising to pay the other staff. I can't tell you what a relief it is as an activist to know that at the end of every month, despite the Phoenix pay system, I have confidence that I am going to have money deposited in my account at the end of every month. It's the first time in my life that I've actually had any kind of financial security, which liberates me to do whatever I think is important to do, which this year has been, by the way, I haven't said much about what I've been doing in Parliament, but I did get amendments accepted in the last few weeks to the Fisheries Act. I've had amendments accepted to the OSHA's Act, to the Access to Information Act. I did get amendments into this horrible bill C-69, but not enough to make it worth passing. But I did inject into the impact assessment legislation a requirement that the government operate with respect for scientific integrity, because there was no mention of science in the bill as it went forward for first reading. It's a very bad bill. But someone was asking me earlier why I was going back to that gong show in Parliament. Well, and the reason is every now and then I get something accomplished. And besides, they need somebody to supervise. So that's that. Unless anyone has any other questions, I'm so thrilled to see you and say, oh, yes.
can you give us any hope? What is the way forward? There's 76 of them left.
I hate to bring you the bad news. They think another one died. We're down to 75.
Oh, no.
It's in today's Times columnist that one more hasn't been seen in his pod for a long time. So he's at this point presumed dead, but let's hope that's wrong. I'd love to see him spotted, but.
And did you get my email that Oprah Winfrey has bought land on
Orcas.
Island?
Yes, I misread it at
Some
first, I
solar
have to
power.
say. First I thought you were telling me she bought all of Orcas Island, and Sheila was very upset.
8.5 acres.
8.5 acres. Look,
But I think Oprah for orcas, like, could produce.
well, let me just say, first of all, on the southern resident killer whale, on the whole issue of the Trans Mountain Kinder Morgan project, I should have said this. It's very important for everyone to know that the key court cases have not yet been decided. The key court cases are 15 in number. They were heard in consolidated fashion by the Federal Court of Appeal in October of last year. Now, those 15 court cases fall into 3 categories. One group of them are First Nations cases. So the Tsleil-Waututh, the Musqueam, the Squamish, the Chinook group, and I always pronounce that wrong, but First Nations are on Kamloops. There's a number of First Nations cases making the case that their constitutionally protected Section 35 rights were infringed because there was not proper consultation. So those are the First Nations cases. A second group of cases are those of municipalities, City of Vancouver, City of Burnaby. Their lawyers did a fantastic job in putting together the case of how badly they were treated as interveners through the National Energy Board process, how their evidence was discounted, even though their evidence was stronger, better, clearer, how the NEB just basically dismissed their evidence and concern, for instance, particularly about billet spills, and in preference took the evidence of Kinder Morgan that was, in a word, laughable. The third group of cases are all about the southern resident killer whales. So these are the cases raised by Ray Coast Foundation and represented by Eco Justice, and I think Sierra Club and a few other groups, who are arguing the statutory responsibilities of the government to protect the southern resident killer whale. By statutory, I mean, once a species like the southern resident killer whale is listed as a very endangered species, the government of Canada has a legal obligation not to let the species go extinct. And the Department of Fisheries and Oceans evidence to the NEB was very clear that the Kinder Morgan pipeline expansion and a 7-fold increase in tankers would threaten the survival of the southern resident killer whale. Now so 3 categories of cases, 15 different plaintiffs. Each case raised 5 to 10 to 20, 10 to 20 on average, legal arguments, separate legal arguments the court has to decide from each plaintiff. So no wonder it was the longest hearing in the history of the Federal Court of Canada, Federal Court of Appeal. It has a 3-person bench. They haven't ruled yet. What are they going to say? I don't know. But if anyone, do the math, any one of 150 minimum different legal arguments, if any one of them is gold, and the court says, well, that legal argument, you can't get around that, that means the permits are quashed. Which means it's not, so the permit on which the injunction was taken, which I broke, and I can't justify breaking an injunction, but my main concern was how could they proceed to build when we don't know if those permits were issued legally or not. So we will find out soon, any day now, we will find out if the Federal Court of Appeal rules that the Trudeau administration, in granting the permits, have violated First Nations rights or infringed on the rights of cities like Burnaby and Vancouver in a way that means the permits have to be quashed, or have failed in their duty to protect the southern resident killer whales and therefore the permits are quashed, or, best of all worlds, win on every count. In which case, there's no way, I mean, the Liberals will then end up, unless we can stop, by the way, I have a petition online, I can't believe I forgot to mention this, an e-petition you can find through ourcommons.ca, it's over there's information. Please sign it, it's at about 11,000 people have signed so far to stop the sale. Because technically, we don't yet own the pipeline.
Thank God.
It's, the closing is in August. And I'm trying to get hold of the contract of sale. It's apparently 151 pages long, and apparently people have seen it say, we might end up paying more than $4.5 billion. It's not completely decided yet. But the process by which, so we try to stop the sale of the Kinder Morgan pipeline to the government of Canada, try to stop them from going after our pension funds to invest in the next stage of the pipeline. There's a lot going on this one issue. But whenever the court rules, if we win on any count, Justin Trudeau and Bill Morneau and Jim Carr are going to find themselves standing there saying, well, okay, I don't know what they're going to do. I really don't know what they say. They've been saying all along that they didn't cancel the Enbridge pipeline. The courts canceled it because the Harper government was so disrespectful of First Nations that the court ruled that they hadn't adequately consulted and therefore they canceled the Enbridge Northern Gateway project. What are they going to do if the court says the same things about what they did? They're hoists of their own petard. Same thing, what are they going to say if the city of Vancouver and city of Burnaby are right? Specifically, what if the court says the decision of the federal government imperiled the lives of the community of Burnaby all around that tank farm by ignoring the evidence from the Burnaby Fire Department that they can't put out a fire at the tank farm? No Canadian journalist outside of BC have ever even covered the threat to the people who live on the top of Burnaby Mountain, to Simon Fraser University, to the communities all around. So I don't know what they're going to say if those court cases go the way I hope they'll go. But at a minimum, they can't build anything. They'll have to go back to saying, oh, okay, we have to redo the environmental assessment process. And we're going to have to, and which process are they going to use? Well, the new process from Catherine McKenna isn't much better at all than the process under Harper. But they'll have to redo that process, environmental assessment process. They'll have to restart consultation with First Nations. And I don't know, they can't restart the extinction issue for the southern resident killer whales. They may just have to say it's a no-go. So we'll see. We're not scuppered yet by any means. The court cases that were already heard in October of 2017 are what I'm waiting for and counting on. So have a good thought, hold a good thought for that. So I really will get out of your way now. I'm very grateful to all of you for being here, and I want to thank all the individual volunteers who stepped up to run. This is an extremely high-functioning, impressive group of volunteers, every single one of you in this room. I'm so grateful to you. And if I don't get back to you right away on emails, please forgive me, write me again. And I'll be back for all of our Canada Day festivities. Next weekend is Toronto Pride Parade, walking with Mike Schreiner. So fun to have us both elected, I have to say. Mike and I have the same birthday. And so when I was campaigning in Guelph, I told everyone in Guelph, all I want for my birthday is that Mike wins this seat. And Mike would say, that's all I want for my birthday, that I win the seat. Because it was pretty phenomenal. He won with 44% of the popular vote in that riding, and he will make a real difference in Queen's Park, just as David Kuhn has made a difference in Fredericton, and Peter Bevan-Baker has made a difference in Charlottetown with Hannah Bell, and goodness only knows, Andrew Weaver and Sonia Furchnow and Adam Olson have changed politics in BC forever, gotten rid of big money in politics, and now Adam has worked so hard to protect our wild salmon, and I'm trying to get Dominic LeBlanc to do the right thing for wild salmon federally. So Greens in office, even if we're not in power, can do a lot more than other parties. I'll leave you with one closing thought. This is from Kevin Taft, and I'm sure that this is going to come up later in the meeting about Kevin Taft. He's the former leader of the Alberta Liberal Party, and this is what I mean about global corporate rule. Kevin Taft said in an article recently, Rachel Notley may be in office, but the oil industry is in power.
Yes.
And we got to blow the whistle on this and demand that the citizens of any country, the citizens of any province, are the boss. And governments, politicians will listen to the boss, the citizens of their constituency, of their riding, of their country, and ignore the pressure from transnational corporations, unless transnational corporations are advancing something that's in the general interest, that will serve the public, the common good, that will help the overall health and prosperity of a country. But if they're diverging, Prime Minister, Premiers, you have to pay attention to what's in the interest of your country, your province, and your planet, and that's got to be the fundamental duty of anyone elected. Anyway, thank you for your time today, and continue with a very successful meeting. And I have to say goodbye to my puppy. Thank you so much.
Okay, off to the airport.